Hello everyone, and welcome to the sixth and final episode of the Female Knights Roundtable Series 2020. I'm Duchess Sir Lee and Ian Faraday from the Kingdom of Lockhart, and I'm your host today. I would like to welcome you, our audience, our lovely producer Vespa, and our panel knights. Thank you for coming on the episode today. We've got a great list of questions that we've gathered from fighters around the known world. And also that some of the female knights have come up with ourselves as we wish you had have asked us this in the last 5 episodes. They're roughly grouped into the categories the path, training, the way women are treated, and knighthood in general. So a few of these will be answered by all the knights and others will just be answered by 1 or 2, just because of our time constraints. So you can ask questions through the Facebook live chat. Our producer Vespa will be monitoring that, and she'll pass those into us. If we don't have time to get to your question, we apologise that we are under a time constraint, but we will endeavour to get an answer to you after the episode. So we're going to get started then. Would Sir Adrian like to start by introducing yourself?
Hi everybody, my name is Sir Adrian de Calais. I am 33 years old. I am from the Kingdom of the Outlands. My main weapon form is sword and board, but I love spear and wars. That's mostly what I fight. I've been fighting for 15 years. I was fighting for 13 years before I became a knight. And the one thing I love about fighting is the drinks and no shit, there it was stories. So.
There we go. Hi, I'm Countess Sir Fern de la Forêt. I am the first Lady Knight of the Middle Kingdom. I was knighted in 1985. I had been a squire for 10 years before I got knighted. I was knighted at Penzig 14, and it was an amazing experience for everyone who was there. I was an unbelted queen, and my king was an unbelted king. So both of us got knighted at the same event after our reigns. Thanks.
Hello, I am Gwenllian Rhiannon. I am Viscountess by right of arms of Drachenwald, and I also, when I was offered the accolade, took the Master at Arms. Thus, I have a white stripe. I am 62 years old. I'm currently in the East Kingdom, which is where I was originally from, but I did travel around quite a bit. My main weapon form is sword and center grip round, although I played a lot with buckler and I used to do a lot of 2-sword. I've been in the SCA since 1977, 43 years. I started fighting in 1978. I got very serious in 1980, which means that I got out of the carpet armor and made myself some real armor. I was offered the accolade 14 years after I started fighting in 1992. And the one thing I love most about fighting is the freedom and exhilaration that comes from the challenge, both the challenge of dealing with an opponent and the personal challenge of the discipline.
There we go. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulty. Do you have me now? All right, I'm Sir Brialthan de Reims. I've been fighting for 33 years. I was elevated in my 32nd year, so just recently. My major form is sword and board. I like spear for war. I like 2-stick. Love bastard sword. Best things about fighting: the camaraderie, the challenges. Yeah, just it's everything. So.
Hi, I'm Mark Alexander. I am a knighted in the West, and now I live in Lockhart. I am a Viscountess by right of arms of the Principality of Snogwa in the Kingdom of the West. I was knighted in the West 18 years, excuse me, I was knighted in the West in 2009, and I have lived the last 4 years in Lockhart. My primary weapons form is sword and shield with a strapped heater when I'm on the heavy field, or if I'm in melee, I prefer pike. And on the rapier field, I like sword and dagger. I've been in the SCA for 37 years, and I've been fighting for 29 years. I was 18 years before I was knighted. And the thing I love about fighting is the camaraderie and the dance of the swords. I very much enjoy the interplay of the weapons and the people and the athletic skill that that builds and the friends that you make on the field.
Great answers, everyone. So moving into our first question, how do you define prowess?
So prowess is one of those things that everybody marries with actual sword work or other weapons forms. And so definitely it's one of the cups that we drink out of from all of the virtues, and it definitely makes a knight. You need prowess and need to be able to exhibit prowess on the field martially. But there's also another type of prowess, and that is prowess of self-control. What kind of mannerisms do you have if you're upset on the field or someone's not taking your blows? So that prowess of self-control, that's another form of prowess. So I think I'll let my sister knights carry that one a little bit more for me.
I have two ways to evaluate fighting prowess. One of them is skills. I made up skills tests for myself. Can I hit the same spot on the pel 10 times in a row with my eyes closed? That was a skills test. Can I do 50 shield presses? That was a skills test. But I knew I really evaluated prowess by fighting other people. When they fought me, if they beat me, they had to put forth their absolute best skills in order to beat me. When two good people fight, one's a winner, one's a loser. The one, you don't care so much who wins, but the fact that both of you were pushed to your absolute best, your A game. If the other guy's fighting his A game and he manages to beat you, that tells you what your prowess is.
I look at prowess in two parts. One is control of the self. So if you're on the field and you're fighting, are you able to control what your body is doing, what your fight is doing? And we always talk about how you want to have control of the fight. Well, if you have two fighters that are doing very well and are well matched, then the control of the fight may go back and forth. But if you can control yourself during that, then that is an exhibition of prowess. If you can control your opponent, then I see that as the greater level. And I think that a knight should be able to control themselves and then to be able to control their opponent and thereby control the fight. If I can throw a fake and make you open and then be able to take advantage of that, that is a greater prowess than just being able to take advantage of the mistake that you may make. Whereas you wind up dead in both cases, the control of that fight and my controlling your fight shows a greater level of prowess on the field.
Right, so the next question is a bit of a long one. Do you think a woman is capable of being a top 2% fighter in the realm of the Super Dukes? If so, what do you think it would take for her to get there? If you think there currently is a woman fighter who fits this definition, what did she have to do to get where she's at?
So having done this as long as I have, we've definitely come a long way. This is such a strong, dominant, male biased sport. I think quite honestly, it would be really, really, really tough to see a Super Duke female fighter. That said, I do feel that our sport has come a long, long way, and we are getting much, much better at understanding what it takes to help a female fighter excel. I think some kingdoms that have smaller crown lists have a higher likelihood of seeing more females in the finals. What are the dukes that are Super Dukes? They're incredibly, incredibly gifted. There's no question that an elite athlete has got a serious gift. I, as a female fighter, was never gifted. This is nothing that comes natural to women, to females, not the way we're raised, not the way we're built. So to have a female come with a gift that goes that far, I think it would be very special, and it would be someone very special.
So we've seen several women now reach pinnacles that weren't expected, and that's awesome. And so I think it's going to happen. I think it's out there. I think the level of training over the years has exponentially grown. You know, you can go on YouTube now and find out how to throw a flat snap 42 different ways. Okay, maybe not 42, but you can find that information now. And it was really difficult to seek out high-level training. And when you did, you know, you latched onto it and you rode that wave for everything it was worth. So I think it's probable. I think it's possible. I think it's coming. I think that if I had to mention one lady who's got a hunger for it, it's our sister knight, and I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce this correctly. Is it Ryukin? It's not right, I don't think. But I think it's out there, and I think the training's out there, and I think the will is out there. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be too much longer. I think probably in the next, 3 to 5 years, I would hope.
Great answers. Thank you for those. So the next question. If a fighter chooses to pursue a weapons form other than sword and shield, do you think that makes the path to knighthood more difficult? What would you say to a newer fighter who insists that this is the path that they want to take?
I would say it's definitely harder because mostly in circles and everything else like that, what we judge on is sword and board. And so it's hard to judge you on whether you're the same level as somebody else when you're fighting with a weapon that's different. But it also will help you stand out. So I think it's helpful to you where it could be detrimental to you in the same way. Being in tournaments, like possibly warlord tournaments or things that do mixed weapons forms, will definitely help you stand out in that. And I think that would be a path that I'd try and shoot for a lot of those. But I'd also shoot for somebody in your area that really knows that weapons form and train a lot with them, because you're going to have a little bit of a harder path than somebody with a sword and board. So, but I don't discourage it at all. So I would say, different weapon forms create different kind of passion. If you're passionate to play, it's a conversation that you need not only to have with the fighters in your area, so you're establishing a pattern like, hey, I'm going to be a two-stick fighter, or I'm going to be a sword and board fighter, or whatever your passion is that's driven by that weapon style. Not everybody's sword and board, but I have to agree, it's not common. So you might get a little bit of pushback, and that's okay, because my belief in your training is that sword and board is our bread and butter. You need to know how to use it effectively and efficiently, because you're going to have to train that to the people coming in behind you. Having said that, it's conversation with your local people, conversation with the knights in your kingdom, saying, this is my passion, this is the weapon that I would like to pursue. You also have to consider that some of these weapons are melee or war weapons versus tourney weapons traditionally. So again, follow your passion, have conversations, push back for that passion, but you need more than just one weapon style. You need to be able to do sword and board. You need to be proficient in other weapon styles. And I believe that every good knight should fight more than one style.
Okay, question 5. What networks and systems would you put in place to encourage new female fighters to take the plunge? What would have made it easier for you to start fighting when you first started out?
So I think in reality, at least where I am, I'm already seeing more female fighters start fighting. What I worry a little bit more about is them staying in and not dropping out. I think to keep female fighters more active and more interested, we need a lot more consistency in training the female fighters. I know for me, when I started, no one knew what to do with female fighters. There were very, very few of us. They fought us, they hit us, they tried to tell us what to do, they really hardly even knew what they were doing. So having someone actually know something that works would have been incredibly helpful. And I think more training sessions like this, trying to teach the teachers and trying to expand the ripples out that women are going to be in armor and you need to know how to deal with them and you need to know how to teach them is the best thing we can do to keep them in armor and get more involved.
I think this question has a lot of aspects to it, and it doesn't have just a quick soundbite, glib answer that I can give you on this. I think that being able to see other female fighters fighting is great for the newcomer, because when I started fighting, the question was, well, do females fight? And I started fighting because I wanted to be that example on the field. I wanted to show that, yes, not only do females fight, but here's one, because we had females fighting, and in the West, we were actually very lucky, but they were fairly far between. Being able to see high caliber female fighters is extra bonus. And part of the reason we're doing this series is so that folks are more familiar with us. When I went to Lockock, they had seen one other female knight, because that was when Roisin had gone out to Lockock to go fight at festival. And when I came out, you know, I was the second, and people were like, oh, that's amazing. And there were female fighters that were able to say, hey, I can do that. She's doing that. I have representation on the field. Now I know that this is something that I can do. On a physical aspect, what you can do to encourage new female fighters is to have loaner gear that they can actually use. If your area has loaner gear, having some smaller helmets or some breastplates, having lighter shields will help her get on the field, because then you're not trying to put her in stuff that doesn't fit, that pinches, that, you know, breaks her down before she ever gets on the field. If she's fighting her armor the whole time, she's not going to have a good time. And there has to be a certain amount of keenness to this and enthusiasm to get on that field in the first place, because you're watching controlled violence in action. And for us, especially as experienced fighters, we like that part. But not everybody does. They watch it and they're like, oh, that's really cool. It looks slightly dangerous. Is it going to hurt me? Well, we know we're safe because we're in armor that protects us. But when you're putting a new person in armor, that armor doesn't necessarily protect them. And we try to protect them then by leveling our skill to the level that they are and the level that their armor is. But if that armor is not available to them, they can't. It doesn't mean you have to haul, you know, 7 sizes of helmets to every practice. It means that when you have a female that's interested, you can say, hey, next week, I will bring this size helmet. Having a lighter shield helps, because we found that if you're handing somebody a 1/2-inch plywood shield, they're not strong enough to make that work. And so that means that they get very frustrated rapidly, because they have a shield that they throw a blow and the next beat is getting their shield back in place. And so they're not able to learn how to flow with the shield and their sword. And that creates a huge amount of frustration. Now, I believe that everybody needs to have their own sword and their own shield as soon as possible. But to get them interested and to get that started, that is the type of things that you need to have available to them. Psychologically, they need to be able to see that there is a safe space to have this violence in. We are custodians of our opponent's safety. My job is to wear enough armor that I can play the game at the violent level that we have set out and not be damaged. However, I know that my opponents actually have my best interest at heart, and I have theirs at heart. How often have you seen on the field, you get out there, you're wailing away on one another, and somebody goes, ouch, and you're stopped. Oh my gosh, are you okay? Are you hurt? Because I'm hitting you at 100 miles an hour with a blow. I expect you to go, oh, yeah, good blow. But you know that I'm not going to damage you as a part of this. So it's controlled violence. Our new people need to see that and need to experience that and know that they are safe from us, and that they can then exhibit that same amount of violence back to us, and that we are teaching them to be safe. And that's a training issue of being able to train them so that then they are enculturated into what we're doing.
Thanks. Two things. Sir Mari is totally right about the importance of loaner gear that does not damage the new person. It doesn't have to fit right, but at least it shouldn't damage them. This is crucial. Secondly, the role model aspect is amazingly powerful. I have moved since being knighted to 3 different baronies. Every time I move to a barony, I'm the only woman fighter when I'm there. And the next year, more people want to start fighting. And the year after that, about 10% of the local fighting force is female. And this tells me that those ladies wanted to fight in the first place, but they didn't want to be the first one to do it. So if someone else is there, a knight is good, but an experienced lady fighter is there, then all of those other would-be fighters don't have to be the first one. The other thing they see in psychology, when the beginning fighters see a woman who is interacting with the knights at an equal level, not just fighting with them, but chatting with them, joking with them, hanging out with them, that's the kind of role modeling that makes a big difference in how long they're going to stick in the SCA. Thanks.
Thanks everyone for those very well thought out answers. I'll just add to that as well. I think it's really important to proactively invite your new female fighters when you go to the pub after training or whatever maybe the Sunday barbecue is, because you might assume that they know they're welcome, but they might not know that. And that's camaraderie and feeling of being part of the group is really important. The other thing is make sure, if possible, you have structured beginners courses in place. For example, it might be a 10-week program and you just turn up every week and you know you're going to learn something rather than just the turn up and beat each other up type training. I think that's a way to help newer female fighters as well. So next question, is mansplaining a problem when you're teaching? If so, how do you deal with it?
Well, mansplaining. So I prefer to call this knight-splaining because that's where we see most of it is in knights. It's other knights that walk up. And so I'm going to take this as a point of view if I was training somebody. There are 2 things that I take into perspective with this. And one of them is, were they requested and is it constructive? So I can pretty much deal with knight-splaining, somebody knight-splaining something to somebody that I'm trying to train, especially if it's their knight. And I was asked to fight them and maybe give feedback. And I also really like people who mansplain seem to overcomplicate or knight-splain seem to overcomplicate what we're trying to explain to the fighter. So what I like to do is I actually like to have like a little tete-a-tete with that person where like I maybe everything that they say, I make it into the simplest one form declarative sentence that I can give to a fighter. So I don't really have a problem with knight-splaining while I'm teaching per se, because I try to counteract it with something that's more positive. So that's not really an issue that I have in a lot of things.
Sometimes I give teaching advice. In real life, I'm a college professor. The teaching advice when I'm training other fighters to be teachers, the teaching advice is make one correction at a time, give them a chance to do the one correction, then make another correction at a time. And this teaching advice applies to whoever is talking too much. Fighters have a tendency to want to tell you everything that they've learned and everything they know, and they'll tell it to you all at once and you can't shut them up. There are no secrets in SCA fighting. And sometimes what you need to do is pause.
All right. Which trainers have connected most with your fighter brain? What has triggered your greatest strides in prowess?
So I found that the trainers that have connected most with my fighter brain are people who mimic my mistakes. I like to see what I did. Telling me what I did wrong doesn't always work for me. I want to see how your body moves. So like I very much learn from showing, not telling. So sitting there and having a conversation with me for 10 minutes, I really don't get much out of it. I get a lot out of show me exactly what I did wrong, show my hips, show my arms, show like how my body was positioned and with my particular shield, because I fight with a teardrop. And I like that. The biggest part of this, I think, is yourself learning how you learn and being able to explain that to your teachers. So I learn by, you need to show me exactly what you're talking about. So move your hips, move your shoulders, throw your arm, what's going on inside your basket? What are you doing with your hand while you're throwing a shot? So it's like the best advice that I take for training is that. And what triggered my greatest strides in prowess, I think I was kind of a slow and steady. I learned every practice I came up, there weren't any huge shots in my fighting. I was pretty consistently getting better in my fighting and understanding it more, like taking a piece with me each time, because I was very good at shutting out advice that was just not helpful to me because it's just somebody telling me something. So the better opportunity for me with that is I moved to the Outlands. So I got to be the knight that I wanted to show people I was, instead of being in a kingdom where I grew up, where I had a lot of preconceived notions from when I was younger and everything. So I think that really helped with, it was more of me fighting people where I was instead of actually my fighting skill. And so I learned with that a little bit. It took a while to get past my own head, like beating where my confidence actually met my prowess level. That's a really hard one for some people, is I didn't have confidence in my fighting. So I would fight well, but then my brain would beat me. I would beat myself down. And so I think the greatest strides in my prowess was learning how to deal with, or learning my prowess level in my head was the same as in my basically.
So Duke Salmonev's fight out of the Outlands now was really instrumental for me, because he got me to think and fight. I took a lot of natural attribute to the field, and for lack of a better term, I was just wailing, wailing to wail and hoping I would land and hoping I would kill. And he stepped forward, and he actually was touching me in the forehead repeatedly after I came off the field one day, and he said, "Why aren't you thinking and fighting?" And I'd come out of the dojo, so it was a little bit different. Things were very structured, and the SCA didn't necessarily have the same kind of structure. And that really resonated with me. So I started breaking down fighting and becoming much more of a technical fighter, fighting to my structure, instead of trying to, I guess, bully my way in a fight. And that really helped a lot. And then there was Duke Yon out of Trimaris, who is a little bit of a smaller stature. So I used his stature and modeled myself off of that. So it helped a lot, because I could emulate things that he could throw, or things that he was throwing. And I had somebody to talk to that was like, well, okay, I'm 5'7" and you're 5'7", and so how do you throw that, and when do you throw that? And that really helped with my prowess, to find somebody that was more my stature, and helped me to emulate what they were doing. And then putting that together with thinking and fighting and technical attributes brought my prowess to a much higher level very quickly, as a matter of fact.
Thanks for that. I think in Lockhart, we're lucky we've got some excellent trainers. So Duke Mule and Duke Gabriel, especially good with training female fighters. So we're lucky there. So on to question 8. As a trainer, what are the most effective things people can do to normalize women fighting in our sport?
I think that one of the things that we do in the society, and we do it in other venues as well, of course, is that we look for fighters that already fit the fighter mold. So if you have somebody who is aggressive, has blood in their teeth, is super keen, is athletic, then those are the folks that we look at and we're like, yes, you are like us, come fight. But with female fighters and a whole category of male fighters who tend to get overlooked in these conversations, they're not always on that same aggressive level. And so they are not actively punished for being different, but passively punished in that they are not included in the rock and roll, we're going to take this fort, we're going to, you know, take the bit in our teeth and go kill, kill, kill. And as a result, they feel left out and they start going, well, maybe this isn't for me. There are a whole slew of technical fighters and fighters that are more involved in the process than the goal. And to find the fighters that you connect with helps a lot. And to learn what your student feels. You know, are they a process person? Are they a goal person? And we had this discussion dealing with motorcycle stuff last week, that if you have a person that is process oriented, they may feel that they are failing because they are not getting that process 100% right. Understanding how they look at their fighting helps, because then you can encourage them to keep going. Also, to extend the invitation, as Leodin said, there are not only on the fighting field, but in the after parties and the bullshit sessions afterwards, including those females into that makes them more a part of the game. All of us have mentioned that we are in this for the camaraderie. We like the friendships that we've developed. I can tell a lot about you when we're on the field. If you're going to be my friend, you know, if I get out there and I fight you and we have a energy that has some give and flow, we don't have to fight the same, but if we have a good give and flow, I know you can be my friend. If you're blowing off shots, if you're constantly angry at yourself, if there's no connection, I don't feel connected to you. As a new fighter, I want that connection. I want to please you. I want to be able to take your instruction and make it into what you're looking for. So having that praise helps. So ending on that good note helps. This is true for everyone. This is not a female fighter issue, but it helps to normalize how she is processing the fight and how she is processing what is going on. We already talked about the armor issue and making sure that there's armor that she can fit. I had complaints from female fighters early on that the guys would have somebody come and go, oh, dude, I've got a breastplate I can give you. You know, I've got a helmet I can loan you. And the females felt that they were fighting uphill because they didn't have somebody to help them. I've also heard the opposite, where everybody helps them, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. Putting the females in command. If you have an equal level of fighters out there, having that female in command not only hooks her in, but it also hooks the people that are watching. Because then, just like with the upper level females being knighted, having them in command gives permission for everyone else to be able to go, that's possible. I can do that. You are the example. You know, I can't tell you how often I've been champion, I've been captain of guards, I've been general of the army, and being given that responsibility makes me feel more a part of the game entire, and also allows others to feel that that is a possibility and that they can come join that. Also on the field, in order to make it normalized for her to go out, let her be selfish. Let her be single-minded in her goals when it comes time to fight. Too often, we take on the burden of making sure the tent's up, making sure the kids are okay, making sure the meals happen. And whatever it is in the partnership of your relationship, your war party, your squire household, whatever that is, making it so that everyone has equal share of the burden off the field so that everybody can go play on the field is very important. Because if she feels that it's her job to go take care of the thing, she can't leave. And so everybody says, hey, we're going to go fight. And she's like, lunch still has to get made. Somebody has to make sandwiches. And if she feels that's her job, she's not going to take to the field. And so she's going to give up that moment of going and joining. So making that open so that she can go play along with everybody else, and having there not be an emotional burden to her leaving will help her be on the field more often.
That was actually really great, Mari. And I took this question a slightly different direction. first of all, normalizing a female fighter's experience and training does not mean making it the same as the guys, because female fighters are not the same as the guys. One of my biggest pet peeves that gets me going is when the usually male teachers say to the female fighter, you need to be more aggressive. Aggressive does not mean the same thing to a woman, a female, that it does to a man. It is a horrible suggestion. It is totally non sequitur. One of the biggest difference male to female fighters, other than physique, are the mental differences. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We already know this. Females focus so much more on how they feel things went, not how they feel they did, how they felt about what happened. When we get compliments, I think we tend to think, but I could have done better, or they're just saying that. We feel less success. The females I've worked with tend to be more disparaging of their successes. And I know I have, you know, when I was getting better and start having more kills, it was like, oh, I'm just not doing it right. It's not working. And I couldn't accept that my absolute ability and my prowess was accomplishing this, because I'm not a physically gifted fighter. It was all hard work. So what I'd like to actually see from a training point of view is a time for a female fighter. She goes out, she fights some fights. And usually what happens is she'll come off, she goes to her buddies or her teachers. Oh, wow, that was great. You did great. That was awesome. Instead of saying, how do you feel about what you just did? We need to let the female fighter process that, because they cannot get past that until they understand that this is unique to them. And I think if we can understand this and accept this as normal to normalizing female fighters, we're going to see a shift in how female fighters think of themselves. And I just can't emphasize enough. I really think that would make a huge difference.
Excellent answers. Thank you. So the next question, what personal goals do you set as win or success conditions in training to help improve your overall fight?
I'm a process fighter. So that means that the end goal of winning the fight is lovely, because you have more fun when you're winning than when you're losing. Just a part of how we're wired. However, there are a lot of parts in the fight that I want to do well in. So if I win the fight, that's great. But if it was a good fight and there was good flow to it, the win-loss really does not matter nearly as much to me. So some of that flow, when I'm training, I set specific goals. Am I trying to work this fake? Are you falling for it? Am I getting killed when I set it up? I need more lateral motion. Did I succeed in doing the lateral motion? And sometimes I start a conversation with my opponent when we start at a training and say, I'm working on X. As a knight, often I get to say, what are you working on? And I let them work on whatever they're working on, and I try to facilitate that. And so that becomes part of how I measure my success, is in how my student's doing. For me personally, when I'm training, then I am looking to accomplish the thing. And we talked about mansplaining earlier. And often what I find is that on either side of the trainer-trainee dynamic, I will be working on lateral motion. And then somebody will come up and say, oh, but you're not doing this. I'm not working on that. I don't care about that right now. There are 1,000 things that go into a fight. I'm trying to focus on the one thing. So mansplainers get shut down. Stop talking to me. I'm trying to work on a thing. And sometimes I have time for them to explain to them that we're working on a certain thing, and sometimes I don't. And sometimes it's a very good suggestion. Hey, their greave's untied. Oh, well, I guess we should fix that before we keep going. I didn't notice. So for me, I am looking for that process in the the practice fight that I can then take to the tournament field. For my personal wins on the field, it is having that execution of the fight in a smooth, fluid manner, to be technically accurate with it, and to have fun in it. Because when I can just let the fight occur on a tourney field, then there is fun and I'm having a good time. And I can leave that field exhilarated, whether I've won or whether I've lost. At the end of the day, I feel exhilarated from the dance of that fight.
So first and foremost, I tried really, really hard to set realistic goals. I think this is really hard for a lot of women. I can't believe right now with Facebook, a lot of my friends are like, I can't get any projects done. I feel so bad. I'm so guilty. They're working from home. They're homeschooling 2 kids. They're sending a spouse who's an essential worker every single day, and they're upset because they aren't getting projects done. I mean, this is just crazy, ladies, nuts. So simple goals and train in practices. Today, I will not get leg shot. Today, I will throw more leg shots. I will throw more combinations. Do it in practice. As I started fighting more in crown tourneys, out west, there's a challenge-in system for the first round. I would challenge the biggest mega duke, the one who was probably going to win. And my goal was, he will not one-shot kill me. That was it, people. And you know what? It worked. He wouldn't one-shot kill me. Didn't matter that I died. He was a mega duke. He went on to win. So another thing I did in training that helped was, if I was entering crown tourney, I would fight a practice like crown tourney. I would say, this practice, I am going to fight. When I die, walk away. Don't keep picking up fights. Wait a bit and repeat. It really helped normalize the crown tourney so that the nerves didn't get as much into play. Another thing I want to speak to kind of quickly is, as I've aged and I had a long, long layoff to get my knees replaced, I found that setting goals is no longer what I need to do. What I needed to do was decide what I wanted. Was it worth all the effort to come back, go through the humiliation of being kind of pathetic again, because I haven't fought for 7 years, and have people not know me and look at me like, well, what the heck is she doing there? My worst enemy was definitely my ego. I had to focus on the end, enjoying fighting again, and not on, but I'm not as good as I once was. And I think by doing that, I'm hoping I can be an inspiration to other people coming off injuries, layoffs, surgeries, to not focus on what we used to be, but to just simply enjoy the fight, because it's a hoot. It's a hoot.
All right, so we've got a question from the audience from Ingegard. I hope I said that right. So she asks, how much of your progress and success come from consistency, determination, learning from mistakes versus natural talent and athletic ability? In addition, were there times when you were first starting out that you felt uncertain that you could do this? So Browthen?
That's a great question. You know, having fought for 33 years and kendo before that, and then being elevated at the age of 50. So it took me 32 years to get elevated. Determination is a big one, right? Consistency, determination. Now, I do have natural skill, so I tend to be quick and I can move, and I have martial arts previous experience, so there is that. There is some natural ability. But this sport, it's a pain game. You know, our opponents generally have greater reach, larger lung capacity, they're stronger. So there's all these different things that you have to face. And I think that your mindset and your ownership of your path is huge. Putting a plan in place for yourself and placing small goals, or, you know, short-term goals, medium and long-term goals are all very, very important. But yeah, the mindset, the determination to set your mind that you're going to do this and that you're going to do the distance, and it will come up. It'll come up, and you'll say to yourself, well, why am I doing this? Do I want to continue doing this? And then you might have to reset that mindset. But your ownership of your path and your determination is going to determine your longevity and how your path unrolls out in front of you. So I would say they're huge. And if anybody wants to talk to me about that, I'd love to talk to you outside. So thank you.
So everything that I do has been hewn from the bedrock of suck. I've had a lot of people say, well, that's because you have natural talent. That's why you can do this thing. Excuse me? Natural talent, my left eye? Natural talent. Psh. No, as Duke Uther says, I have natural drive to fighter practice. That's what I have. I have natural determination. I have natural, we're gonna make this happen. I am blessed in that I have always been a part of fighting households. My partners have all been fighters. So, you know, if you want to spend time together, you got to be in the car going to fighter practice, because that's where together time is. So you go out and you fight. And I cannot tell you the number of times that I've decided coming off the field that was it. I'm burning my armor. I'm done. I'm done. And I'd sit there and think, and then what? Then what do you do? And having to struggle with the reality of where my fighting was versus where I wanted it to be. I had to learn to take my ego and put it in the armor bag. And, you know, I could go out there thinking, I'm great. And I had a pattern of, I would fight one practice and be amazing, people dying, all the things were working. And 2 days later, I'd be at fighter practice and dying like a dog. You know, I was lucky that I didn't have shoelaces, because I wouldn't have been able to tie my shoes. So I would come off of that going, I suck. And so one of the things that I learned through my trainers was to stop looking at a fight on what did you do wrong today? Because my attitude was, well, the things I did right, they take care of themselves. So I need to focus on the things I did wrong. But what would happen was that in my mind and in my fighting, what I did wrong was huge. That list was long. Why did I even think I could be out there? And so we turned it around. Okay, what did you do right? Okay, do more of that. Do the right thing. The things that are wrong, we can correct those small, but concentrate on the things that you did well. And so on the way home, we would have the conversation of, give me 2 things you did well today. Okay, give me 2 things you want to work on later. And that helped the attitude shift. That helped it make, so I did not feel that everything was horrible all the time. There are sometimes that camaraderie was the only thing that got me through, because, you know, I certainly wasn't skilled enough to be out there. I had to learn to make the journey joyful, because you're going to be on the path. The path is going to take a long time. And one of the things you learn as you're knighted, as like I said, I won coronet by my own hand, and every mountain you get to the top of, what it allows you to see is that there's another freaking mountain. And if you're not ready to climb all those mountains, if you're tired, you know, sit down, take a break, it's okay. But if fighting brings you the joy, and that's where you want to go, you pick up your rucksack, you pick up your helmet, and you go up the next mountain. And success comes because you get more experienced. And like I said, it's more fun to win than it is to lose, but losing is very educational if you let it be.
Thanks for those answers. I'm going to throw in a quick answer too. In short, I think that progress and success comes from both. It doesn't matter how much talent or athletic ability you have. If you don't work hard, you're not going anywhere. And then a slightly different take from what others have said. Before I started, I did think I'd be pretty good at it early on, just because I came from a competitive sport background and I was used to doing well at things. That was not the case. It took me a lot of dedicated training over a number of years to get good in the way that we measure good, which is winning. Having done competitive sport will help you, because you know how to be trained. You have a good awareness of your body, and you're used to just working hard. That's just part of what happens. So it is helpful, but if you don't work hard, you're not going anywhere. Is definitely the answer to that one. Question 10. So we had a preset question and then we've got a viewer question. So I'll just combine the two. So how do you work through plateaus in training, use their lessons and eventually break through? And then we'll combine that in with how do you encourage another female fighter that you've seen lose interest in fighting because of poor behavior or advice of others or low self-esteem?
Oh, sorry, what was the first part of that question, please?
Sorry, the first part was how do you work through plateaus in training, use their lessons and eventually break through?
So plateaus in training, they're inevitable. They will come. They can be incredibly frustrating. They may even want you to give up because plateaus can show themselves in many different forms. And so to work through it mentally is where it's physically. So physically finding out what you're doing or what you need to do to break through that plateau and bring your fighting to the next level. I was talking to a fighter the other day. She's 5'3", I believe, and she wants to get past the plateau that she's at. She wants to bring up her kill ratio. And so we discussed targeting the body of her opponent versus the head. And so that conversation led to footwork. And so over a course of about an hour, we changed some very subtle things in her fighting. And she went to practice and she got noticed for those changes because she was able to break through that little bit of a plateau, take her fighting to a different level. And sometimes it's just that. Sometimes a plateau is just a change in your footwork or a change in what you're attacking on your opponent or timing or misdirection. Sometimes plateaus are mental. Sometimes you can get in your own head and you're not even fighting your opponent. You're literally fighting yourself on the field, not even your opponent. And you become a very easy target, which is demoralizing. So recognizing which plateau you're at, and you can even have both at the same time. But we all get them. We've all been there, and forcing our way past them. It's just a matter of sitting down with yourself, some trusted trainers, and working through those different plateaus, identifying them, what it is that's holding you back, that's not allowing you to go to the next level, and then working through them, mental or physical. I think the other part you asked about how to get through difficult situations. How do you go ahead and read that second part question to me, please?
All right. So how do you encourage another female fighter that you see lose interest in fighting because of poor behavior? Sorry.
Okay. So I've had several women come to me and say, I don't want to do this anymore. And why do you have longevity, Bree? What is your longevity? Well, part of my longevity is passion. So if you love what we do and you've lost that passion, it's about fun. It's about having fun. Do you remember when you were a kid and you picked up that garbage can lid in the alley and a stick and you went after each other with garbage can lids and sticks and it was fun and you laughed? Or you go and you watch youth combat. Children laugh when they fight, and adults typically don't. You might experience bad behavior on the field, and I hope that doesn't happen, but we know that it has. And so, again, it's up to you to say, I love what we do, and I want that happiness to be there when I fight. So sometimes you have to take a step back and reevaluate. And then take a step forward back into your sport to find the joy of it and the happiness of it. And this is oftentimes what I tell women that have been demoralized and don't want to fight anymore. But the truth is they don't come to me to tell me they don't want to fight anymore. They come to me to say, how can I get rid of where I'm at to fight some more? Because the truth is they really do want to fight, right? They're just demoralized or have had a bad experience. And so joy, passion, happiness, the fight itself, finding somebody that brings you joy when you fight them. Sir Bess, Sir Erica, several of the other female knights that I fought over the years, I can't stop smiling when I fight them. So my male fighters, William, a couple other people around practice. You know, when I fight them, I smile. I cannot help but get this stupid, crazy grin on my face as we're duking it out. And that is the happiness and passion of our sport. And so to find that, to help you find the joy and overcome whatever mental anguish that's happened to you is really important. So remember, fun first, right?
Other things you need to know. It is realistic to compare yourself to the other fighters. I had the great good fortune when I started fighting of being part of a group of 10 newbies. We all went to college at the same time. We all started fighting at the same time. They had no previous athletic skill, and I saw them have no previous athletic skill. They were bookworms. They were nerds. They were D&D players. They could barely pick up a pencil. All of them were like that. So it didn't matter that I was like that too. That's okay. In a plateau, it's also worth noticing that the other people at your experience plateaus. Do not assume that the woman needs to be better or stronger or faster. The guys go through many of these same problems that you do. And if they go through it, it's worth seeing where they are and how they get out of it. We can learn, it's okay if we learn things from how the guys train. That's okay, we can do that.
So I think how I work through plateaus is like, so one was a huge mental one for me, especially on the path to knighthood, which was getting over people's perception of the 20-year-old really drunk party girl that loved to have fun, but also liked to get up in the morning and go fight. Not always on time, but I was always there. Into, you know, the 31-year-old fighter that I am today that can actually handle problems that arise in an adult manner. And so that mental plateau is one of those is don't ever change who you are to try and become a knight. I think everybody who knows me knows that I love to go hang out with everybody after fighting, and I love to have a drink. I love to talk about how your day went on the field and everything else like that. So getting over mental plateaus, that took me a little bit. That was my mental plateau where I was trying to fight everybody else instead of actually myself. So plateaus as far as in fighting and everything, it's not a really easy way. It's not something that we can tell you how to get over. If you're not having fun, yeah, go try something else, go do something else. Try other things in the area, try a different weapons form, try fighting 5-on-5, so it's not just you, and travel. Nothing will get you over a plateau faster than traveling, because you will fight so many different people that you're not used to fighting. And if you have the capability to travel, because pickups on war fields after the war day is over are some of the best training time that you could ever get in. And so I believe in that. As to encourage another female fighter that has lost interest because of poor behavior or low self-esteem, I would say come fight with me. I don't know. Without an exact example, there's not a great way to deal with that. If you're right there, then come hang out with me. Like, we'll make sure that you have fun. You know, the low self-esteem part, nothing gets my self-esteem up more than putting on my helmet. I'm a very nervous talker in front of people. I'm nervous right now. I'm sitting alone in my house, okay? And I'm nervous right now. And so putting on my helmet, though, I can sit there and I can scream at an army to go charge a bridge and take on, you know, the hundreds of people on the other side. It's finding where your self-esteem lies in it. And so my self-esteem comes with my helmet going on my head. I'm very nervous in person. So I think, you know, just find some people. Like, this all goes back to finding a trainer that can really talk to you and train you in the way that you need to be trained. And it's okay, don't pick the first one you see. Like, go out there and find somebody who can actually train you and speaks your language.
Excellent advice. So question 11, Have you ever felt like a female candidate has been actively stonewalled by their male mentors or regional male members? If so, how have you proceeded? Conversely, have you ever felt like female candidates have been brought up too quickly simply based on the fact that they're female? How have you dealt with that?
There we go. It is one of the great compliments to the male knights that when they are good at evaluating the women the same way they evaluate the men. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but mostly I see them trying to do that to the best of their ability, trying to be fair. Now, a decent woman fighter gets a lot more attention. She's easier to identify. They look at her sooner than they look at average guys, probably sooner than she's ready. So there's the impression of being close, being looked at for a long time. But mostly I think when there is bias, it is more unconscious bias than conscious. This is what I've observed. Maybe other kingdoms, other people have different opinions.
So I've only been to council in the Outlands, so this may differ from different kingdoms. We don't really have this as an issue, the part where have you ever felt like a female candidate has been actively stonewalled by their male mentors? I don't think that that's a thing that happens here. We're all we have the problem of being too helpy and too full of advice for the females that show up and that have promise or show promise. I think we can get a little overzealous with trying to help people like that, which also gives them a bad expectation on where they might be on their path. And I think that can feel like stonewalling to people sometimes, when just because we talk to you and we give you a lot of help and everything, we're trying to make you better and everybody's here to help you, doesn't exactly mean that you're as far on the path along as that sometimes you may think in your head. And I think that that gives it can give the perception of stonewalling when it's not actually happening. I think that sometimes your relationships with the knights that you pick don't actually work out, or your teachers don't actually work out, and you can walk away from that. I know in some kingdoms it may be harder than others, like giving a belt back to a knight is not an easy thing to do. I gave my belt back to my first knight because it just wasn't a good teaching opportunity for me anymore. So I needed to move on to something that was. And so I think that, sometimes you're afraid of that and that could get you stonewalled. I also think that I had a teacher that would stand up for me and tell my truths to people and everything else like that, but it's not his job to walk in there. And in my opinion, it's not his job to walk in there and advocate for me. It's his job to tell people, if something, they were like, we saw her do this and this is ridiculous, that he'd be like, oh, no, that's not actually what happened. Here's the story. So I think your job is to convince, it's kind of convincing the rest of the circle and not your teacher. So don't always take it as a bad thing when your teacher also votes no on you or polls no, or whatever you guys do in your kingdoms. So I think that that's a big issue that we encounter here, is just over teaching and over helping sometimes can lead to bad expectations. And I don't think that that's always a good thing. And they can be brought up too quickly based on the fact that they're female, just because they get a lot of attention. And you can be excelling with those few people, but that doesn't show the grand breadth of your prowess, in my opinion.
Question 12. Do you ever feel that your voice gets discounted in council because you're a woman, or that your brother knights treat you differently, even inadvertently, due to cultural conditioning? If so, how do you deal with this?
No, I never. They cannot shut me up in Knights Council. They always hear my voice.
I'm gonna have to second that one. I've never experienced this in my kingdom whatsoever. They very much listen just as much as they do when anybody else does. When anybody else speaks in council, I love that. about my kingdom. They're very welcoming. They're very opening. Open. Once you have a belt, you're one of us. That's what it is. We have a very healthy circle. The only thing that I ever usually get is they're like, hello, brother knights. And then they'll see me and they'll be like, oh, and sister. And I'm like, I go by sir for a reason. It's okay. That doesn't bother me. It's okay. And so, yeah, no, I don't have to stop.
Question 13. How do you approach an opponent who rhino hides or has the opinion you can never defeat them and therefore never take the hit that you throw?
So I have a very big problem with calling this rhino hiding because that's not what it is. Let's call it what it is. It's called cheating. Calibration is in the rules. You should look them up, figure out what they are, calibrate yourself. You can even talk to opponents and have them calibrate with you. It's not rhino hiding. It's just straight up cheating. And you can tell that I feel very, very personal about that one. What I do to defeat them, therefore never takes it. So there's two ways that I've dealt with this, and I'm going to tell you two little stories on how this happened. When I was a non-belt, I had somebody that very much did not want to take any of my blows in a tournament, and you could tell very much halfway through the fight, I just gave up. And you can tell it in my body language, like I started slipping my shield. I started kind of just giving up on the fight, and then they finally hit me and I walked off the field. When I was a belt, we went quite a few passes until I figured out that this person was not going to take shots from me. And I stopped the fight. And I said, I'm very sorry, but after several passes with you, I realized that there's no way that I'm going to hit you hard enough. And so I conceded the field, and I bowed to them and I walked away. Is there better ways that you can handle this? Yes. Like looking back on it, when I was a non-belt, I could have gone and talked to their knight or even gone and talked to my knight and had them talk to each other. There's a lot of things that could have helped with that particular situation. I think you need to be the change you want to see in the SCA, and I don't like cheaters and I don't want to see cheaters anymore. So me leaving the field when I had my belt on was the best choice I could make at that time, because I didn't need to stoop to their level to throwing baseball swings to get somebody to take my shots. That's not something that we need to do. You don't need to besmirch your armor, and then just work on better communication all around. Like, light is a very easy thing to say while you're fighting. I don't want to have a conversation with you. Light, good, no. Like, they're really easy things to say while you're fighting. And you can also have somebody, like if you're a non-belt, you can have a knight watch your fights and tell you when you actually hit, if you hit somebody, if there's a person that you had a problem with or anything else like that, and give you feedback on that.
So I really applaud Adrian. You're right. When a cheater's a cheater, they're a cheater. I have a slightly different viewpoint on this and comportment. So in the late 70s, when I started fighting, this was still a game of honor. It was all about honor. It was about you are honoring your opponent by acknowledging their shots. No one really thought rhino hiding was a thing. Later on, when different kingdoms, it flared up differently, you know, it obviously became a thing. So my first take, and this is what I tell unbelts, if you do not feel like your opponent is taking your shot, first and foremost, do not try to hit them harder. As soon as you try to hit harder, you will lose all of your technique and you will stop owning the fight. So it's really important that you try to focus more on technique. So the first thing I do is assume I blew the shot. It's like, you know what? I blew the shot. I center myself and I focus on my technique. If I can get the opening once, I'm going to get it again. If I'm pretty sure that I'm now getting the opening consistently with good technique and they're really not taking it, I need to now set the standard. I am not going to lower my standard to play their game. What they are trying to do is mentally control the fight. What I can do is at will, correctly and vigorously with correct technique, hit them whenever I want to, repeatedly. and let karma deal with it. They will come off the field to a lot more ridicule if I play the correct game, the calm, completely in control of myself and of him, my opponent, and they will pay the price when they get off their field. Believe me, their peers and their friends will give them holy hell. So really important. Don't accuse someone of cheating, but if you really feel that there is an issue, absolutely conversation off the field, but fight the game, control the fight, control your mental. Don't let them get in your head, because that's what they're trying to do.
So I have to agree with what both my sisters said. I'd also like to add too that when you are thick, when you cheat, and your opponent has leveled a good blow against you, you've stolen something from them. When you don't acknowledge that, you've stolen a little bit of glory. And in our game, as we walk this path and we are expected to show our prowess, I've trained months to stand on that field and throw that killing blow, that telling blow. And then when you say it's no good, you've stolen a little bit of glory, some name fame, a word of the day. You've just stolen maybe a conversation between the two knights that were going, that saw that fight, or maybe you've stolen a conversation about me in the Shiv meeting. And so you steal somebody's moment, not just a fight. You take away so much more from them by not playing fairly, by not playing honorably. If you run into somebody that's of this nature, you can do a couple things. You can have a marshal on the field with you as you fight that opponent in the tournament or at practice, whatever the situation may be. You can hit them in an unarmored spot, like the armpit or inside thigh. They're not friendly shots, but they're legal shots and they're pain shots. If they still refuse to take a painful blow, then there is comportment on your side saying, you know what, you're not going to allow this to happen. So I'm going to remove myself from the situation. I yield the field. It's a horrible thing to do. You know, I can't even imagine somebody yielding the field to me because I wasn't playing honorably. You know, when we are in a tournament, there's 300 people watching you. And so if a telling blow is struck, I typically never said anything if somebody refused to take my blow. I nodded, thanked them for the fight, and left, because the populace saw it, the knights saw it, and they need to make up their mind there. But bottom line, folks, is if you're cheating, you're stealing. You're stealing from your honorable opponent too, and you're stealing from the dream of the people on the sidelines watching that.
Excellent answers, thank you. Could you talk about the helper trap? For example, tips on how to balance the desire and expectation to help others, especially at practice, with obtaining or asking for skill training and attentive support.
This is an interesting question. I wasn't quite sure the direction that it was coming from. So I'm going to start with saying that communication is key. If you are the fighter that is being helped, knowing that you can approach the knights, approach the folks that are doing training, and ask them what for the help that you need. Often as a beginner, you don't know what help you need. You just know that you want to fight. And then it's like, well, what did you see? Having random people come into a fight and stop you to correct something can be overwhelming. So to be able to stop and say, you know, this is what we're working on, if you are indeed working on a thing. If you are being overwhelmed with help, it is important to be able to say, my brain's full. I try to do 3 things when I'm working with somebody and give them 3 pieces and no more, sometimes 1 piece. But it's difficult because I know a lot of things and I'm very excited about it. I want to tell them all to you right now. But that's not what you're going to take away from it. You know, so I need to know what my takeaway message is to give to the person I'm fighting. If I'm watching a fight from afar and I see something that is going to cause damage to that person later. They're throwing a blow wrong. They're doing something that is going to physically damage them. You know, I feel confident in stepping into that fight. If it's my student in the fight, you know, I watch that fight. And then if there's something that I'm like, yeah, that's not good. We're not doing that. I may step into that fight and have a conversation with the other person training them. If there is a book called Fear is the Mind Killer by Kaja Sadowski, and Vespa's going to link it here somewhere. So that book has a lot about training people in general and in maintaining female fighters, and it has a lot of drills and in talking about how people's mind work for training. So that should be able to help you know more on some of the psychology behind training. So in short, if you are seeking training, have that communication, ask for the training, find out if you have a trainer, a knight, you have somebody that you're working with specifically, come up with a plan with them. What are we working on? What are our goals? And to be able to have those delineated per fighter practice or per training session, and then your overall goal, and to take measure of that and the things that are getting you along that path. If you don't have that communication with people, as much as we might want to help you, we're not mind readers. And so we don't know if we are overcorrecting you, undercorrecting you. As the fighter, it is my responsibility to be able to ask for that help as I need, and to have somebody that can then guide that training if I'm being overwhelmed. And I need to be able to say, brain's full, can't fight no more, must sit down, have to take helmet off, let some of the thoughts out.
All right, the next question, 15. If you and your significant other both fight, are you able to fight one another without other emotions or baggage creeping in? Are you able to take feedback from one another? What difficulties does this present? How do you navigate your relationship and fighting?
So mine was an interesting situation. I was squired to a knight. So luckily my initial role was that of a student. It later developed into a relationship and later on marriage. So I found that I definitely had to keep practices very neutral. If I was having an issue fighting him once we were in a relationship, I would simply not fight him that day. Whether the issue was with me or him was unimportant. As his squire, as his student without a relationship, obviously I fought him and accepted what training, however brutal it was. But once we were in a relationship, I had to occasionally draw that line. The more I kept practices to just two fighters fighting, the easier it was to fight in tourneys if we got put together, which did happen. Conversation can help. In our situation, he really never saw an issue, but there were days when I could just feel, sense, see something, and I was like, I'm not fighting you today. And in his favor, he absolutely never had a problem with that. He would just say, no problem, I'll watch you fight. So it all worked out.
So I don't, my significant other does not fight in the SCA and does not participate in the society, but I do have squires that spouse in the society together. And my advice to couples that fight together is not every couple can fight each other. Some do fine with it, and they establish that early on in their relationship, and they can fight each other, and it's great. Others, it causes anxiety and fights, and they don't do well fighting one another. I've also heard friends, wives of fighters who fight themselves say, my husband will never hit me, even with a stick. You know, so it's a little bit different for, I think, every couple, and there's a conversation that needs to be had there between that couple. So, but if you do have anxiety when you're fighting your spouse or your spouse is training you, have that conversation and rectify it, because you're sucking all the joy out of it and you're not getting getting that healthy feedback. So it's okay to say, you know what, let's not do this part together. Let's take it in another direction.
I've been in the SCA since I was 15 years old. Every partner I've ever been with has been in the society. Every partner I've ever been with has been a fighter. Bearing that in mind, when I started with Duke Rolf, and he was a Duke. I had a Duke in-house. It worked out really well. I was able to take direction from him and be his student and not his squire, but be able to learn from him because he was clearly the better fighter. It was easy for me to internalize the information he gave me and to be able to make it work. The downside was because he was my partner and doing some training with me, of course, I wanted him to be proud of me. And so I felt that if I wasn't able to do what he was recommending on the Pell or on, on the field, that failure was twofold. I was failing him as his partner and I was failing him as his student. And so I had to figure out how to place that information. Later, I had a partner who we were fairly well matched. And in that relationship, I would like to say that I had the high ground, but you know, I was young and probably stupid because we all are. And in those fights, I felt that I had a double-edged sword, pardon the pun, because if I won the fight, he would sook. He would be completely a jerk for the ride home, perhaps the next day. And if I lost the fight, he was a poor winner as well, and he would gloat. And perhaps he did those things with other fighters, but they weren't me, and I was his partner, and I was reliant on him for happiness and sex. And if he was going to be a jerk, then it made me not want to fight him at all or do anything else with him after that. I've had other fighters that I have trained with and has been joyful fights, and we were able to take instruction. And part of that process was me learning how to learn and to be able to separate those two things. Currently, I do fencing with Yevon, who is my partner, and I find that the emotional burden of the fight is something that I'm very aware of. And in discussing this question with him, he also mentioned that he has difficulty fighting me because he doesn't want to hurt me, whereas he's happy to, you know, hurt someone else. He doesn't want to accidentally hurt me. And we are both fairly aggressive fighters, and he's a bit unconventional. And so in order to do well against him, which of course I want to do, I have to fight harder and faster. And I need to be in more control, because if I bruise him and he's not my partner, he walks away, goes home, I don't have to hear about it. If I bruise Yevon, he comes off the field and I get to deal with whatever that was for the next 3 days, even if it's just, oh, you hurt my finger. And he's joking, but I'm his partner. It's my job to fix him, not break him. So there's a lot of communication that has to happen in those fights. And if you find that you can't fight them, then you need to have that conversation, say, this isn't going to work for me. Now, I am fortunate in that I've never been in an abusive relationship. I have talked to people who are and who have come from abusive relationships, and the mental switch between their lover hitting them on the field and their lover being abusive is a fine one. Even if it wasn't this lover that was abusive, they can't turn that off. And it's something that we are embarrassed about, because that's our society. It has been a very rough road, and the Me Too movement and all of that has helped with that. But to be able to recognize that in yourself, to be able to say, no, I can't separate these emotions, to have that conversation is very important.
Excellent answer. Thank you, everyone. So question 16, how has the reason why you fight changed and developed over the years?
So I've been doing this a long time. I will try to keep this short, but it's a bit of a long answer. The reason I started fighting and the reason I got back into fighting is because it's a blast, plain and simple. It's the biggest hoot and holler I've ever had. When I started to get more serious, when I first started fighting, there weren't that many women fighters. When I started to get more serious about becoming a better fighter, in my own head, I wanted to be better so that I wouldn't get pointed to by the guys and have them say, see, that's why women shouldn't fight. It was totally my fear. Talk about females thinking differently. I never had a guy say that. I never heard a guy say that, but I didn't want to be that one. So I wanted to be good enough that that wouldn't happen. So then I started getting better. I started going into tourneys and I realized I really want to win. I want to be competitive. So I realized, well, if I'm going to win, I better get better at fighting. And I wanted to be a threat. So I had to become a threat. And that was a huge turnaround. That was when my opponents started fighting me. When the helmet went on and all they saw was a threat, believe me, they handled it like any other fighter. In Drachenwald was where I ran into the issue, the discrimination. During Cornet tourney, I got smacked with one man's obvious discrimination. It took me out of the list. There was no way I was going to win. When the tourney was set up to be refought a few months later, I had to really think long and hard as to why I wanted to put myself into that fire again. And I thought about it. I knew I was going to enter it, but I had to really think why. And the answer, what I told myself was, I knew I could do it. I knew I could legitimately win the tourney. And I knew it would make a difference to other female fighters. And so I had to do it. That was my crucible of fire. Once I got on from there, it was all about being a role model and being an example of what female fighters can do and what they can achieve. When I decided at the age of 60 to try and get back in armor after a long layoff, I wanted to see if it was still fun. And when I discovered, oh my God, it's a blast still. I'm not great. I'm not the best fighter out there, but I'm having fun. And if I can inspire someone, male or female, if I can support other female fighters, if I can say it can be done, then I'm in there and I'm going to do it. And that drives me because it is a blast.
So it has changed over the 33 years, but let me start at the beginning and I'll try to make this quick. So I came from a different sword style. I was doing rapier in college. I was doing kendo, and they were pretty easy for me. I found that I was dominating those classes and those tournaments. And a friend of mine introduced me to the society, and I saw this heavy hitting armored combat, and it was so exciting, you know, and there was no weight class. So that was very attractive for me. And I went to Germany, where I saw Master Gwendolyn win her tournament. That was a great day. And I met Sir Rame, Viscount Sir Rame, and Viscountess Gwynna, and they started showing me heavy combat. And I just knew that this was the place for me because it was so incredibly challenging. I've never been the best fighter on the field. I never will be the best fighter on the field, but it's that passion, it's that challenge. And when I was at my peak performance and winning tournaments and coming in top 5 or just working these huge heavy fields and doing really well, I mean, that was it. That was everything that I trained so hard to do, those moments. As I've gotten older and my prowess has declined in certain areas, I'm just sneakier and a little trickier. But there's never been a bad day in armor. There's never been a bad day fighting. There's never been a bad day on the field. And so it keeps bringing me back. And I kind of got this little mantra, you know, when I can no longer swing a sword, I will push a spear. And when I cannot push a spear, I will pull a bow. And when I cannot pull a bow, I will pull the siege. And if I cannot pull the siege, then I will stand the field and I will teach for all those that come past and want to learn. So I hope to be around for a very long time.
I started in the SCA when I was 15, and I looked at the people fighting heavy in the heat and in the cold and in the mud, and I thought, those people are out of their flippin' minds. That does not look like fun. That looks terrible. I watched my partners come off the field with bruises and with big grins on their face, but injuries and sweaty, and I thought, ugh, that's nasty. I don't want to do that. And so I would marshal. I was a good marshal. I could wield the marshal stick really well. But what started to happen is that we go to demos and our boys would go out and fight, and the little girls would come up and go, do women fight? Are there girls who fight? And I could say, oh yeah, there's Sir Hilary Serendip, she fights. Yeah, and Siobhan Deshay, she fights. They weren't there. They couldn't see those women fighting. And I went, oh, I need to do this so that they can see a woman fight. So I put on the armor and I learned to do it. And I learned the joy that comes with it. I still had my rules. I have the 100-degree rule. I do not fight if the temperature is over 100 degrees. I do not fight if you have to put the meat in the freezer to keep it warm. That means it is too cold, and I won't fight. So learning to do that and to be that example on the field was an important part. And of course, I don't want to be a bad example. So that means I had to get better so I could be a good example. And then as my fighting progressed, I learned the joy of the sword work and the manipulation of techniques and the camaraderie that comes with it. And that was joyful. And in 1995, I was friends with a man who did not fight, Brock, who is now a Viscount and a Pelican. And he is a Viscount because I made him one, because he is an incredible individual. And I thought that him being on the throne would be a benefit to the society. And I had already been on the throne as queen once. And then through our relationship, I fought for him for 17 years before I won coronet for him. And I felt I was his best chance at being prince. Luckily, he's very patient. So 17 years of me fighting for him, he was okay with that. I had the goal of knighthood, and some days that goal seemed very, very far. And sometimes it actually started to manifest itself. I had a crisis of faith as I got closer to knighthood, because one of the things that happens as you get close to knighthood is that people get very excited and they want to see you do things. And so the people that were training me and the people that were on the periphery of training me would go, oh, we need to see you do this, and we need to see you do that, and you need to go to this practice, and you need to go to this thing, because they're not subtle. But what I found was that being on stage and having to perform my very best, even at practices, meant that I couldn't fail. That meant that anytime I was like, I'd like to try this new shield, and they say, no, you need to succeed. You need to stay with this, stay the course, you're on the right path. And I wasn't having fun, because part of my fun is the experimentation. It's the, okay, I've done this, now to go do something else on the field. And I said, screw it, I'm done. I don't want to fight anymore. I'm done. And Helga, who was my trainee, and part of the reason that I wanted to be a knight was so that she could be my squire, so that she could have a knight. And when I stopped and said, I'm done, I will only fight when I'm having a good time. And she went, I have faith in you and I will stand by you. And my knight Havek said, I'm not taking the belt back. You're still here. You're still a fighter.
Come on, Mari.
All right, ladies. And so after doing that and basically only going out to fight what I wanted, 6 months later, they came to me and said, we'd like you to be a knight. And I stood there and had a lot of conflict. This was a goal I'd had for 18 years. They were offering my dream. And I wasn't sure I wanted it, because I didn't know if I could continue to fight if I could continue to be a knight. Knighthood is a step in the journey. It's not the end. So that means that I need to be able to pull myself together, and I need to be able to fight. And I need to be that example for the rest of my life. That was heavy. I was already a laurel. I was already a pelican. I knew what peerage weighed. And I knew that I had to take that and figure it out. And it took a lot of long conversations, because as much as it had been a goal and much as it had been a dream, I wasn't going to take it lightly. So after all that, I did decide to take it. And I went the following year, I trained for coronet with renewed vigor, because I needed to have that light of being a knight. I needed to be able to prove myself to myself. The people who had already put me forth for knighthood, they believed in me. I didn't have to prove anything to them, but I needed it for myself. And I went to finals that next coronet. And you cannot want to win so badly that you're not willing to die. And there were two beautiful clean blows in finals. I had gone to finals clean, and my opponent was Lachlan, who is now a duke in an A kingdom. And he took beautiful, absolutely beautiful blows. And I went down and laughed and laughed. But I had done that proving. And from that, because I was not going to be princess, I then decided that I was going to form Knights Errant. Now, we've had several different groups of knights through the years that have decided that they would go to outlying shires and outlying areas in order to bring fighting to them, because it's all well and good to say, well, if you want to be seen, you have to come to Crown, you have to come to Central Kingdom. But a lot of those folks don't have knights out in the far boonies. And what happens when you make a pelican a knight is that I said, this is a pelican job. Fighting's the knight job, but organizing this and getting our butts out there is the pelican job. And for 2 years, we did journeys out to the far reaches of the principality and the far reaches of the kingdom. We'd all throw our butts in the truck. I'd contact all the knights that were on the way local to that area, and we'd all show up. And sometimes we'd have 25 knights, and the 4 fighters that lived there would be like, ah! But that was part of my knightly journey. That was part of what I could give them. And because of that, I was fighting all the time. And so in 2012, I won coronet for Brock. And I got to see the fulfillment of that journey I had started so many years before. And he was a glorious prince. And part of the deal was, because I won, we have attendants. They stay on you all the time. Brock was a fabulous attendant when I was queen, stuck to me like a wet t-shirt. And I said, you are never going to go to the bathroom by yourself again once you're prince. And I had rotations of folks that would actually follow him to the bathroom. Ha ha ha. So it was very amusing. And then life took over, and I had a big break from fighting. I fought for a good year after being princess, but then life took over and things got very crazy, and I was not able to fight on a regular basis. When I moved to Lockhawk, I took up heavy again, and I was having a good time with it, but there was also rapier, and I had rapier happening in my backyard on a weekly basis. I also became very concerned about traumatic brain injury, because there had been more than once where I had been blacked out completely. And I had, as a nurse, I started doing research and looking into traumatic brain injury and realizing that now that I was in my 50s, getting hit and blacked out on a regular basis was probably not good at doing as well. And I decided that I would take a rapier, and I have been the captain of the Queen's Guard here. I have fought in melees here. I have fought in demos here and had a good time with that heavy. But I decided that I would change my focus to rapier, because it was a sword game and I hadn't mastered that one yet. So that is what I do now. And I have put away my heavy armor. Every once in a while somebody says, are you getting rid of it? It's like, no. You never know when I might need it. I might need to come out of retirement. You never know. But that is the journey of my swordplay.
Awesome. Thanks, Mari, for being so honest and talking about your experience. I think one of the really important things about this series has been people's honesty and candor with their own experiences, so that people who are in the audience who are facing similar struggles hear their experience represented. And I think that's what's so crucial about this. So thank you very much for that. So we're now moving on to our final question for today. If you had to do your journey to knighthood all over again, would you? What one thing would you tell your unbelted self?
So this one's a little hard for me. My answer is no, I wouldn't do it again, because then I wouldn't be the knight that my journey made me. And I'm kind of digging that person right now. I'm trying to work on me a lot. And I think my path taught me a lot about what I stand up for. And like my biggest quote is, be the change you want to see in the SCA, and just stick with that. And so I would say no, I wouldn't want to do my path over again, or my journey over again to knighthood. And the one thing that I tell my unbelted self is it's okay to say no, because I volunteered for a lot of things, and I did a lot of things that took me away from probably some of the things that I wanted to do instead. But I volunteered and I wouldn't back out of it because I volunteered to do it. And so just, it's okay to say no. Give yourself a break. It's okay.
Would I do it all again? Well, I got back into armor after a long layoff when I was 60 years old. I can't say no. I would absolutely do it again. This journey, the people I've met, the challenges I faced and succeeded have made me who I am today, and it is a far better person than I would have been in any other place. So yes. I would have spent 14 years or even longer if I needed to, and I'd do it again. What would I tell my younger self? Trust in yourself. You're stronger than you think. No question.
So absolutely. You know, it's had its ups and downs. It's made me question myself for good and for bad. The friendships that I've developed over the years across the continents are invaluable. I'm a better person today, I believe, because of the society, because of our discipline, because of our friendships, because of our camaraderies, because of the dream. And I think if I had to talk to my younger self, what would I say? There's a lot of things I said to my younger self, like don't believe your own press. But if I had to go back, I would probably say invest in more stock and mutual funds. And you know what? Probably be more proactive in the training that I needed, not the training I necessarily got. And I was the only one who could define that. You know, these guys did great by me. And so I would definitely say, yeah, I would probably have talked to myself about training and very much the mindset that I carry today, which I had to develop over that time. But yeah, I would go back and talk to myself about, you know, training and how to narrow that path down to get you there a little bit quicker than maybe it took me. It took me a long time to get there and put the whole pie together for myself. So, but yeah, anyone who is questioning right now whether or not they want to continue on the path of knighthood or in general, continue the SCA or continue fighting, do it, continue it. If there's love in your heart and you still have that passion and it brings you joy, then those are good answers. And they're answers that say yes, they point to continuing it.
I would definitely do it again. It was difficult, but all things that are worthy are. It has made me who I am today. It has taught me how to learn. It has taught me how to be effective in the world. It has made friendships and relationships and companionships that I don't see that I would have gotten in any other way. It's an amazing journey. It is not an easy journey. It is an arduous journey, as my knight would say, and well worth it. I would tell myself if I was doing this again to enjoy the journey, enjoy the learning, enjoy the nuance of it. The goal is good. Having a goal keeps you motivated, but it is just the light. Enjoy every step on the path, because you're going to be on the path for a long time. You might as well have a great time. I would tell myself in the beginning to get the best padding that you can for your helmet. Get the best helmet you can afford. And by best, it doesn't mean the prettiest. It means the one that's going to protect all the noggin. And I always wear vambraces. Right, Helga?
I would do it again. I came to college in 1973, found the SCA immediately, knew that this was for me. And now 50 some years later, I'm still here. It's still worth it. Lifelong friends, lifelong activities. I would say to my younger self, stop resisting metalwork. Go ahead and learn how to armor. That'll be better for you in the long run. But what I did right was I tried everything in the SCA. I tried dancing, I tried cooking, I tried washing up after feasts, I tried painting. That's one of the real values of the SCA. You can be a jester this week, and you can be a dancing bear the next week, and you could be the autocrat the week after that. And everything was wonderful. Everything was creative and interesting. I am now a retired knight, and I believe that I am leading the way. I am foremost in the battle of what does a retired knight do? Many people, when they can't fight, they leave the SCA because fighting is their only joy. But I think fighting should not be your only joy. You should take joy in as many other parts as you can. Now I don't fight in Penvic. I have my armor. I fight when I feel like it. I fight when it's fun. And the rest of the time I do other things to pay it forward, to pay back the joy I've gotten from the SCA, pay it forward for next people. Thank you.
Thank you for those words. There's some great advice to your unbelted self that was just said then. So that was our last question, and noting the time, we have gone substantially over. We're going to wrap up now. Thank you so much to the knights who participated in the roundtable today. Again, your honesty and candor is much appreciated. Thank you very much to Vespa for producing every episode. You're a rock star. Thank you so much. Without you doing this, this wouldn't have happened. And even if it did, it would be nowhere near as polished and smooth. So thank you so much, Vespa. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. I hope that you've enjoyed it and really gotten something out of it. I've really loved meeting all the female knights through this series and getting to know you all. It's been fabulous. As I said earlier, it's so important to hear your experience represented in this sort of forum, and it's so empowering for people. So thank you so much for being involved. I just hope I get the opportunity to meet you all in person at some point. Now, before we actually finish, Vespa, can you just tell people where they can find this recording?
It would be my honor. This recording is actually easily accessible on the Female Knights Roundtable series page on Facebook. I have a link that I am literally pressing the button to share right now. I just shared it in the chat, but I will go ahead and put that up as an individual post on the group page as well. So you can check out tonight's episode or any other episodes that have happened in the past. You don't have to miss out on anything.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. So if anyone has any last questions, please post them in the Facebook thread or post them in that Facebook page and we'll answer them. With that, we're going to finish up now. Thanks again so much, everyone, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.